We're unmuted.
Okay, that's what I was checking for.
I hope they can hear us.
Okay, you guys can hear us? Okay. All right, call to order the WTA Board of Directors meeting for Thursday, January 22nd, 2026. Vicki, can we start with you?
Yes, I'm going to use our roll call today to read for the record the names and jurisdictions of our 2026 board members. So I'll call your names in alphabetical order by last name, and after I call your name, you can answer here. Message. So from the Whatcom County Council, we have Barry Buchanan.
Here.
From Bellingham City Council, Scott.
Here.
From Ferndale City Council, Allie Hopkinson. Here. From Linden, Mayor of Linden, Scott Cortice.
Here.
From Everson City Council and also representing Nooksack and Sumas is Jennifer Latbot. Here. From Bellingham City Council, Michael Lillyquist.
Here.
Mayor of Bellingham, Ken Lunt. Here. From Whatcom County Council, Jessica Reinstra. Here. Mayor of Blaine, Mary Lou Stewart. Here. And our non-voting labor representative is Dan Darwin.
Present.
Thanks,
All right, thank you. Item C, public comment. Each speaker is allowed a maximum of 3 minutes. If there's anyone online who would like to unmute and address the board, please do so now.
Hello, can y'all hear me?
Yep.
Sweet. My name's Ukiah. I have been living in Bellingham for about 4 or 5 years now. And I've been following the conversation around fares with WTA for the past couple of months. Public transportation is really close to my heart. And I just wanted to come and welcome all of the new board members and say hi to the board members who were here last month as well. I wanted to acknowledge, that there was a really big conversation that you guys had to have and that also the public was having around the fare increase the last couple of months. And that's likely led to, some pretty big overwhelm on y'all's part, having, 300 plus people coming into your meetings and chatting about this. But I just wanted to acknowledge that and also can try and continue the conversation looking at the future. I know that the decision was made to increase those fares, but I don't want the compromises that we have to make due to budget shortfalls now to dictate what we do in the future. I've been looking into other municipalities that have gone fare free and also looking at the WTA's board of looking into the possibility of fare free. And I would just love to keep looking into that and see what options are out there. We've got a really big base of folks here in Whatcom County that care about public transportation. So I just want to, keep that conversation going. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else online that would like to unmute and address the board?
Yeah, I would also like to second the enthusiasm around the possibility of going fare free. I know obviously, like I understand the rationale of the decision to raise fares, especially since there might be less coming in from like sales tax now after the tariffs and everything like that. But I would like to say that that's not the only possible way to raise new revenue for WTA. It would be cool to see something like a car tab fee or a parking excise tax to um, make sure that WTA is being funded and not have to increase fares and possibly also go fare free.
Thank you. Anyone else online that would like to unmute and address the board? All right, seeing none, is there anyone in person who would like to address the board? All right, moving right along. Board reorganization for 2026, election of officers and other assignments.
Yes, sorry, Allie Hopkinson, board president.
Thanks. All right, discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any opposed? All No. All right, that passes. Thank you. Next will be board vice chairperson. I would like to nominate Jennifer Lottenbach for vice chair. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Major concerns? No. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, that passes as well. Representative to the Whatcom Transportation Board. I would like to nominate Michael Lillquist.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Moving right in the mouth. The alternate representative to the Whatcom Transportation Policy Board.
I would nominate Ally Hawkinson.
Second.
Oh, thanks. Okay. We have a motion and a second. Discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Probably should go over my. All right, thank you very much. Next up, we have recognition for some outgoing board members. Winners.
I think first up is Executive Sidhu. For board action in your packet is a resolution. I guess before we go individually, I just wanted to say thank you to, we have Executive Sidhu, Donovan and Skip here going off the board. On behalf of staff, we just wanted to say thank you very much for your service to WTA and the community. We know you have a lot on your plate as elected officials, having other jobs, duties, families, other assignments and things. And we're very grateful for the amount of time and energy you put into trying to make WTA a better place with the heart of making it better for the community. And on a personal note, I appreciate the time and energy you all spend with me individually, helping me get better so that we can help the agency get better. So with that, I wanted to say thank you to all of you. In your packet, Allie, I was going to say thank you. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay. There's a resolution thanking Seth Paul, an executive, for his efforts and all his hard work here at WTA. So before we ask Seth Paul to say something, is want to pass the resolution? Picture, please.
Yes.
You approve of the resolution? I should have thought about that. Okay, look, and everybody has a camera. No. Thank you.
I just wanted to say that I thoroughly enjoyed. I was new on the council member and I got on this board 2015, 10, 11 years. One thing is this board is the best board I've been ever on in the last 12 years. You come, donuts are ready, coffee is ready. Always. Other boards, maybe once in a while, but here, maybe nothing.
Yeah.
That's mostly. Other than that, I think this is an important function. Coming as a new person on the board, there's so much to learn and so much to learn about this service and how it is being managed and funded and all this and all the other things, ups and downs. We went through COVID and went through now repairs and all these important matters. And I think the board has done an excellent work combined for our community. And thank you. I served with the previous executive director, and I was here when that was brought on. And he has done an excellent work, and so did all the board members. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, we also have.
This is for you. Thank you for your
Thank you.
time. Thank you for what you do for our community and your care for WTA.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate it. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I was just thinking. Do we have a motion on the approval of the one?
I move we approve resolution number 36526.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes. How about the resolution for Todd? How about we just do all of these at once and then?
The approval of the resolution acknowledging employee public service by Todd.
All right, we have a motion and a second discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Excellent. Okay, how about the resolution for Skip?
I move we approve resolution number 367-26, recognizing exemplary public service by Skip Williams.
All right, we have a motion and a second discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Right, that passes. All right, up next.
Yeah, if those didn't.
Used to college Todd.
Still give you that. It's not this. But thank you very much for your service as we talked about. Also on a personal note, as a neighbor and longtime friends, I appreciate your wise and sage counsel to me and the extra effort you put in with me individually to help make me better, bring your wisdom. So it's special to be able to do this today. So thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it.
Thanks for being here. Appreciate your institutional knowledge and the amount that you have taught me since I've been at WTA. It is so clear how much you care for our community, and it has been a joy.
I say something quick.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
sure.
Please.
I echo what Pat Hall said. I don't remember how long I've been doing this.
About 8 years.
But I was here when Wes came on, but I just want to shout out thanks to the staff. This is one of my favorite, I have a favorite board meeting too, but being able to work with people from other governments is a really, really neat experience. But also just the work that the staff puts in just these meetings ahead of time, particularly those like 4-hour long meetings where we're playing with Legos and stuff. That's something, I mean, I think we all appreciate how much background work goes into that. We don't say it too much. So thank you all.
There you go.
I picture.
Get Williams. Get up here.
As we would have said in the Navy, Skip Williams front and center. Skip, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I appreciate all your hard work on behalf of staff. Your guidance, your kindness, big heart with which you approach this. We're happy we'll still be working with you as in your role as City of Bellingham City Council and Mayor Pro Tem. I believe you're assigned there.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, so thank you very much for your time.
Oh, thank you, Les. It's been good working with all of you. And I'll just echo what my other two colleagues have said. This now I've only been here 3 years. But that being said, the direction that you're moving in and the way that you're moving into the future is a magnificent journey that you're going to be going on. But once again, it's for the betterment of our community and service to our community. For me, I picked up this thought a while ago, but service to our community is a rent we pay for the privilege of living in our community. And so on that note, I have really appreciated being on this board and working with all of you to get that future going. So I'll be looking forward to seeing the next steps.
Thank you. I appreciate the rent that you pay to our community. I appreciate the time that you spent at WTA, getting to know WTA and caring for this organization, but not just this organization, each person here. It is so clear that you see each person. So I appreciate you.
I appreciate you too.
All of you. Let me get it. Yes. Right up.
Yeah, thank you.
Have fun, everybody. See you around the neighborhood.
Actually, see you guys. Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Al.
All right, guys, take care. Thank you.
Bye, Sir Paul.
Here.
Yeah.
Great.
She's not.
Item F, board action, approval of price application for fair collection equipment. Audra.
Thank you. I'm Audra Stiles, the Revenue and Grants Manager. I haven't met everyone yet. I wanted to bring this item forward. It is separate from the fare increase that we talked about last November, and that was in December that was voted on. This is the actual fare readers. The readers that we have right now are end of life. They came in 2019. Our electronic fleet techs do a great job of repairing those, but they're getting so broken, we're having to send them back to the factory. They're completely end of life. We'll have to do something very soon. And so this dovetailed with the two things that we wanted to do. One, to be able to get tap to pay on the buses so people can just tap with their credit card, but then also to do joint fare capping between fixed route and paratransit. And so the new and most common readers in the industry accomplish both of those things. When we originally priced them out, it's going to be about $238,000. This market is growing really quickly, and the price is going up. And so the locked-in price on December 31st was $328. So it's $90,000 more dollars that we do have in our fleet contingency fund, which was approved in the 2026 budget. But I did want to bring it to you all because it is an increase. If we put it off, the price will only continue to increase. We're partnering with Cubic to get the lowest credit card tap fees in the industry. And when we looked at all of the other software and hardware companies, this is the best deal we're going to find. Any questions?
Questions? Go ahead, Jessica.
Thank you so much. Just a question about the 10-year lifespan. Is that something that will be a full new cost at that 10 years, or like a software upgrade? Is that anticipated to be a replacement of all of the systems about once every 10 years?
This is a completely new product. We'll see what the life looks like. People looks like being able to use them longer than 10 years. So I think we could probably extend that. They do software updates as the product is in use. And so we tend to use things longer than their useful life by a little bit. So I would anticipate it goes a little bit longer than that. But these readers are high use, especially on a really high use routes. And so it probably would be a replacement, I would say, within 10 to 12 years. Who knows what the technology will be by then?
Sure. Michael?
Just a question. Sometimes there's been a lag in the readers in the past. Are these new units any different or better or the same?
They are better. We have been testing them on 8 of our new buses, and they are very fast.
Nice.
They will pick up a reflection off of a windshield. They are so quick.
Is that good?
Yeah.
It means you can board really quickly.
Great. What else?
I move approval of the purchase of new fare collection equipment.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All those in favor of purchasing new fare collection equipment, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Thank you very much. F2, approval of cobblestone software contract continuance. Miranda.
I'm actually
Oh.
Yeah, Miranda's, she's online for questions, but she's a little under the weather today.
Just kidding. Shonda.
Hi, my name's Shonda Shipman. I'm the finance director. And as Ellie indicated, we're just looking for authorization to continue our contract for our procurement and contract software. We started using this software in 2020, and at that point, we thought the cost would be under the general manager's authority of $150,000. And we're finding as we continue on, it is not, and we want to make sure that we bring that back to the board. We currently have spent about $310,000 since 2020. And we spend about $55,000 annually on our fees, and that is already built into the budget. So we really just a housekeeping issue to clean up our books a little bit.
Right, questions? Comments? Motion?
I move we continue the contract with Cobblestone Software.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving the contract continuance, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes. Thank you very much. F3, approval of fixed route service evaluation guideline revisions. Tim.
Okay, good morning. Tim Wilder, Planning Director for WTA. So this item pertains to our fixed route service evaluation guidelines. This could be a fairly complex topic, so I'm going to try to simplify it and provide, especially board members, the background on what it is and why we have the guidelines. So today we're going to be seeking your approval for revisions to those guidelines. The guidelines are part of our, let's see if I can get this going here. Part of this continuous improvement cycle. We start with our long-range transit plan WTA 2040 and the service that we provide, and this is a way to check to see whether or not the service is performing according to the outcomes that we desire. So it helps us define what those outcomes are and how do we study those and the data behind that. So it tries to quantify those outcomes for us. So this is the tool that we use to be able to do that. So I mentioned this is the basis is the WTA 24 long-range plan. The guidelines were first adopted by the board in February of 2024. And then we first reported on the guidelines with our annual performance report last year. So we've had one round of this and now we're ready to come back with some revisions. We found that it wasn't, some of the guidelines were not providing really helpful, useful data. So I'll get into that a little bit later here. Just a little bit of background for the guidelines. There's two key aspects of the guidelines. We break guidelines into three parts. One is the service guidelines, which really pertains to kind of an interesting way to measure access to opportunity and how people use the transit system. And that corresponds to our mission and our tagline. And then there's the performance guidelines, which pertains to more of the kind of the standard way that you might evaluate transit services or productivity or passengers per hour, passengers per mile, that sort of thing, and cost per rider. And then we have the final part of the guidelines, which pertains to the design. This is really about when we're creating new routes, how do we create routes that we think could be successful? So it allows us to provide some inputs on how we might set those routes up. And then we also have what we call thresholds and targets. Thresholds are kind of the minimum level that we hope to perform at, and then the targets are really kind of more of a goal that we aspire to. So we have both of those with many of the guidelines that we establish as part of this document. And then we have also what we call route typologies. Again, this is sort of a jargony term, but it basically breaks down our routes into 4 different types. One is frequent, local, urban, small cities, rural, and regional. Those are pretty straightforward in terms of what they mean. They do pertain to sort of the context and the way we operate these routes. So for instance, frequent, those are going to be our go lines.
regional, that's the ADX, our service down to Skagit and so on and so forth. And I can certainly go into more detail if you're interested in each of these. Also, these do pertain to our service allocation. So I think it was asked where are maximizing ridership, this service allocation, which I'll get to in a minute, where that shows up. These are our frequent routes that fit within that maximizing ridership. That's where we think ridership will grow the most. And then we have metrics in our service section that pertain to the frequent service type. I'll get into that a bit. And then finally, our thresholds and targets, which I mentioned earlier, do pertain to these route typologies. So my point is these will show up in our guidelines in different ways. So getting into why we are seeking revisions. One is, the obvious thing is, for your new board members, we had an extensive discussion about service allocation, direction. I'll talk more about that in the next slide, but this incorporates the direction from the board after that extensive conversation. We've also had some issues that I mentioned earlier with the current guidelines. They seem to have limited the outcomes or the way we measure the outcomes. And this is a way for us to provide some clarity on whether or not the service is working to assist people in getting to destinations. We used to have this kind of indexing system, and that really did paint an entire picture about how some of the routes were providing access to key destinations, for example. And then finally, it wasn't accounting for sort of a network effect or system where we have various routes doing different things. We had a very narrow view of how we would measure outcomes based on individual routes, and that wasn't always very helpful. Okay, so getting into the changes, there are extensive changes with guidelines. I'm just going to talk about some of the key ones, but certainly if you have questions, ask me about some of those other changes. I'd be happy to describe those in more detail if you're interested. There's the guidelines document that I sent out, and I can go through that with you if you would like. But I'm just going to talk about these here that are shown. First off, again, I talked about the service allocation guideline. We had at least an 18-month discussion with the board about how the overall direction of the system, and we talked about these two concepts of maximizing ridership, which is trying to grow ridership, get more people to ride the bus, and this other competing outcome, which is providing access. And so one is kind of like, how much jam do you put on your bread? Do you thicken it up so that is really a tasty part of the bread, or are you spreading it out on the bread, so more people could take a bite, right? That sort of thing. That's probably a bad analogy, but you get the idea. I like that big chunky piece of jam there. So we had a comparison. We went through different scenarios. We played a game. We did all these sorts of things. And ultimately, the board, the last several meetings discussed wanting to get to an initial 50-50 split as a near-term goal, and then to take our existing service and reallocate the hours to provide more ridership. And so we currently have a 40% maximized ridership, 60% bar ride coverage. So this would transfer hours from coverage over to frequency. Also, the board discussed having a longer term goal of a 60-40 split. Looking at the minutes and the notes, it appeared that the board was supportive of if we're achieving the outcomes of the 50-50, explore the 60-40, given new investments in service. So as we have new revenue, that would go to getting to that 60-40 split. So
what's the horizon on the long term?
We've talked about it being probably more than 6 years. So in us discussing, because that starts from when we begin implementing the 50-50 split, which the earliest date that we begin with that implementation would be 2028, given our service timeline. So 2028, we see the effect of that, and then in 6 years' time, we begin talking about the 60/40, but it really does depend upon resourcing. And do we have investment capability to begin investing in additional hours of service?
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions on that? So I'm happy to pause if you have questions about the outcomes or discussion. Okay, so moving on to our next important guideline, that's access to opportunity. I think this is a big one, a big new one for us. Rob has done some great work trying to figure out a way to measure this. It's very challenging. I'd be happy to let him talk to this in more detail if you have questions. What you're seeing here is you're seeing our guideline to the left. This is in the document itself. And on the right-hand side, we are showing those access areas. Counterintuitively, the lighter the color, the more access you have, the darker the color, less access. Well, counterintuitive on that path, but this is conveying where we currently have access to our system. And so what we're doing here is we're measuring the number of people that can reach a key destination by transit within a certain amount of time. And in this case, we'll be measuring 3 key destinations: grocery stores, medical facilities, and social services. Those are the key ones that we feel like most people will want to access at some point. The goal here is to try to increase the access to each of these destinations. The numbers you're seeing here in the thresholds represent our base year, which is 2025, and this is a proportion of our overall service area. So, for example, total population, 58% of our entire service area could use transit to access one of those destinations within 25 minutes. That's clear. Is that?
So, Jim, we already had some kind of access to opportunity measure. How is this different?
We used an indexing system to measure whether a route, how many destinations a route could get to. So we had sort of the scoring system. Okay. And so this is a measure that I think is more pointedly to the overall population, how many people could access a destination. You have anything?
Yeah, I think the other big difference is that was looking mainly on a route by route basis, which is not how people are generally using our network. It's a network as a whole. And so this is looking at how can people access these destinations based on time in a more tangible way, utilizing multiple routes as a possibility. And we can choose a myriad of factors, whether it's walk distance, walk speed, or whether we're wanting people to transfer, to understand how many of these destinations and how quickly can they access them, basically.
This is Malcolm Duncan Graves. He's our transit planning coordinator, just to introduce him. So I think the major difference is we were using individual route assessments. Now we're going to a network approach.
It seems to me like both are useful, right? As you say, most people don't just ride one bus, only one bus. On the other hand, kind of nice to know which routes are doing more than they think.
Yeah, that does show up in other areas in our guidelines, but not in this particular.
Michael just wants more grass.
Jessica goes. When looking at the grocery services and medical services, are those sites all like the fixed brick and mortar sites, or were any of those like the weekly farmers markets that happen in East County, or like a medical mobile unit that comes frequently?
Those are more fixed. Yeah, those are more fixed locations, right? Yes. Any other questions on this one? Fairly complex, but this tries to distill it down to the essence. And then the other side comment is we felt like having 3 to get more than 3 gets really complex. So we felt like those 3 are most important. We left out schools because not everybody necessarily needs to get to the school. So we felt like these were the most important destinations to be able to measure. Now getting along to the next important guideline. This is access to frequent service, which again corresponds to a service allocation approach. Again, on the left is the guidelines themselves, on the right is the map. illustrative map showing access. And this is showing quarter mile access areas to our go lines, basically. And so these are the number of people that are within a quarter mile of a go line. What we're trying to do here is increase the access over time to correspond with that service allocation goal. This is measuring, I mentioned these percentages again are a percentage of the overall service area. So 13% of the overall population is within a quarter mile of these access areas.
Question that tied to land use and if that development occurs and things, does that have an effect on this?
Insofar as we increase our frequent routes, yes, to correspond with those developing areas best. And insofar as that access area could change, because we're putting in new infrastructure, those are the way that you're going to see this number change as well. I just also want to mention that a quarter mile is usually the industry standard for how far people will walk, reasonably walk to get to the stop. Obviously, there's some people that will walk further. Our recent survey showed, we did a passenger survey last year, and it showed that 73% will walk up to 5 minutes, which is basically a quarter mile. So most people will walk up to a quarter mile. There are a few people that will go further, but we figure that's a pretty good standard to start from, this metric. See, how am I doing on time? Pretty good on time so far. And then next is access by priority populations, very similar to the last one here. This is measuring overall service, though, not just our frequent service. Again, guideline to the left, the right, and shows this is darker areas in this map show concentrations of our priority populations. Our priority populations emerge from the WTA 24-hour long-range plan. We divide those into low-income populations, zero vehicle households, and we're calling disadvantaged racial populations here. This is showing how that access changes over time, again, with the basis of 2025 and based upon the overall service area characteristics. This may have depending on the outcomes of the service allocation direction, we may actually see these numbers decrease. And that really depends on if we capture more people accessing frequent routes, then it may stay the same or increase, but if we're reducing areas of coverage, then these percentages may actually go down. So we'll be monitoring this to see how this changes.
Question. So this is what we're currently capturing. If we had a different map, a map which showed where the priority populations actually are, we could guess whether or not we could reach them. It could be that, for example, they're just outside one of these quarter mile watersheds, and they're easy to reach. Or it could be that they're spread so thin that there's no group to get. When I picked blueberries as a teenager, they told us to not just go for the clumps, so they call it bitty ones. But if you do want to, you just grab the clumps and you can fill your basket really quickly. Sorry, sidetrack. But are there clumps of blueberries? Are there clumps of priority populations that we could catch? And if so, where are they? Or do they generally exist along these corridors already?
They generally exist, right, along these corridors. What the difference is, sometimes we see those smaller blueberries that show up, where it's really difficult to capture those areas, where you might have a multifamily project that is just off of the service area. It's not quite close enough to be able to serve effectively. So the question is, do you try to serve it, but then that affects the service, right?
Do you potentially know where those underserved populations are? Do we have, is there a map of that, and are there concentrations that we know of but we're not reaching?
Yeah, I would say that we are capturing most of those areas, if not all of those areas. This is where people live. This is the concentration of where most people live. But it's very difficult to get everywhere. But we certainly, if you're curious about a map of the overall concentration, we could do that if necessary.
I guess I'd like to see the map of the 43%, right? And if it's a diffuse spread everywhere, then that.
Yeah, we can certainly prepare that if it's.
I'm curious.
Any other questions on this one? Okay, and then this next one, it talks about our bus stop accessibility. We do, this one is really not necessarily a new goal. WTA 2040, we had this goal of achieving full ADA accessibility by 2040. And so this is capturing that particular goal within the guidelines document, so we can track it and show progress over time. What this chart is showing is on the left-hand side, our target goals for 2040, and how many stops, the percentage of stops that would be made ADA accessible. An ADA accessible stop is basically a 5x8 pad, is the main feature of that accessibility, so that somebody in a wheelchair could have a place to get onto the bus. There's some other features as well, but that's the main feature that we use to show accessibility. The map on the right, you can see this. The blue areas are the stops that are currently accessible, and the red are stops that are not accessible today. And I think Malcolm did some recent number crunching. I think the number was 51%.
Yeah, it's 49.83, just under 50%, barely.
So with that being said, we're making good progress every year on making more stops accessible. We have a funding program, both WTA and the City of Bellingham fund bus stop improvements. So we've been making progress. And in that realm, also as development occurs, we can improve stops as part of that. As our construction projects, we also improve stops. So we're making progress towards this goal, but it is a pretty stretched goal to get 100%. You know, you can imagine some areas in the county it would be really difficult to just put a pad out and expect that's going to be accessible. But this does provide us a way to kind of track progress towards that end.
Just to Tim's credit, he came up with a programmatic approach to it as opposed to an ad hoc approach, and developed a program and funding and resourcing and that to make steady progress on this as opposed to what we can kind of thing. And so Tim deserves good credit for this.
Any questions on that? Okay, and then the last one I want to talk about this idea of route directness. So that we know from experience that what makes a successful route is that it's a linear route for the most part. That makes the service more cost efficient and effective. As soon as we're adding additional deviations, it makes it more challenging for through riders. But in certain cases, it makes sense to go off a route where we're picking up a lot of passengers. If it's a conservation of, say, a disadvantaged population, it might be a good thing to do, right? Even if it takes additional time. So what we're adding here is a way to kind of measure whether or not that deviation makes sense, and whether it's worth doing. And we're using a standard formula to calculate the time it takes to do the deviation and the number of people picking up in that deviation compared to the number of passengers that are going through, are not within that area being picked up, but going through on the route. So we can kind of calculate, does it look like it's efficient, or does it look like we need to do that deviation through that standard? So one example that we've kind of used here is the Willows deviation, which coincidentally we're actually on a route detour going into the Willows now because of the construction at the hospital. But long term, that deviation has been removed by the board direction. But that was an example where we were picking up very few people in the Willows, and more people were riding through. It was taking time to go into that area. We were delayed by going to that area, and so we decided that it didn't really meet our intent for this particular guideline. So that's what this does. A little complex, but again, it allows us to kind of see where we go off route to pick people up, whether that's worth doing or not.
You have like a model, you just plug things into and it gives you a feasibility.
Yeah, exactly. So we calculate the amount of time it takes to go in that out and in on that deviation.
Oh, yeah.
And the number of people that are being picked up compared to the number of through riders. So that spits out a number. In this case, 10. If it's 10 or less, that's a good thing. It's worth doing. If it's more than that, we shouldn't be doing it according to the guideline. And so we would use this as a guide to come up with service recommendations, like, oh, we recommend not doing this because it's not meeting this particular guideline. Ultimately, it'd be a board decision, but that's how we use the guideline practically. You have questions on this one? Okay, so I'm just going to conclude here with, again, we're seeking approval today. This will allow us to move forward with the guidelines and for Malcolm to begin developing some templates for reporting. We haven't done that yet. What you saw today was an unpolished way of how we're going to share the information. He'll be working on that following a board approval, and then we'll be first reporting on this in our upcoming annual performance report for 2025. So you'll see this showing up in the next couple of months. I think May is typically when we provide that report. So that's the plan. So with that,
Like just at a very high level summary, so the things that the reason behind this, one, it's a living document. So this is to Tim's point about continuous improvement. So as we find things, and this is an iteration from the last one where we had to get started with something and we found out some things. So that'll be there. But at the high level, this gives us data to make data informed decisions as opposed to route by route or gut feelings or those kinds of things. And so this will constantly improve as we're going and checking the data and so forth. But that will then give the board, as you're making decisions on routes, of data to help inform those decisions as you're layering in your policy thoughts on that as well. Thank you for letting me jump in. Sorry.
Can we go back to the route directives thing? So the way you described it is we're going to evaluate deviations as if they capture under a certain number of riders. So that means you can do two things. You can either limit the deviation or you can make the deviation bigger. So for example, this route, it could, instead of going on Maplewood, go straight up northwest. But if you quote unquote deviate to Maplewood, have a big deviation and capture 80 riders, it's now a good thing, not a bad thing. Similarly, you could go downtown straight up Meridian, or you could go over to James. That could be a bad deviation if nobody's over there. But if there's 200 people over there, then it's a good deviation. So, I mean, paradoxically, one solution to a deviation is to make it bigger, right? And that's why this thing is an S-shaped, or I don't even know what letter that is. It's an ampersand. You see what I'm saying, though? So it's kind of an interesting response to a deviation. Small deviations bad. Big deviations are actually your route.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think this is trying to pigeonhole one specific type of deviation, and that's the minor deviation. I guess another example I would say is our Route 26, which we decided to go by the grocery store in Linden. That we would consider that deviation. In that case, it would meet the standard. So I think what we're talking about are these smaller deviations, and I think what you're talking about is more of this larger route design, right? In which case, then we look at our design guidelines to see how it's performing. Are we going by those places that are most in need? What's the effectiveness? What's the efficiency? We have to look at the run times and all those other factors, right? When we're looking at that piece. So
yeah, the word it used to describe this was you want more linear routes, and that makes people or me think of a straight line as opposed to a curved line. And that's a very curvy line. It's not linear in some sense of the word, but it's also a really good route.
Right, further discussion? How about a motion?
Approval of the new, what are they called, route guidelines? For service, what do they call it?
Service valuation guidelines.
Service evaluation guidelines.
I'll second.
I'll second. Okay, all right, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All those in favor of approving the new service evaluation guideline revisions, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No one wants to. Thank you, Tim. I passed this. All right, consent agenda. Move approval.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. And that will show the adjusted as. Item H, reports to the board. Report on social and health agency free ride program, Audra.
So if I could, while Audra's unmuting, just pass along, Audra's remote today because she's in Olympia with her daughter, who is a state legislative page.
Nice.
Cool. That's
cool.
Why she's not here in person. I thought that was kind of a cool thing. So sorry, Audra.
Thank you. She's being sponsored by Representative Alex Ramel. She's having a great time.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm back to talk about social and health passes. We've been doing this since 2006. We've gone through a few iterations of it, gone from a free ride ticket to a day pass to now 6 ride tickets. We had just under 50% usage, and so we started making some changes in the program last year to try to increase usage, which is working with agencies. How are you giving these out? How are these being used so that they can be most effective? The changes we made last year resulted in a 6% increase in usage, and so this year we did more of the same. We're working with each of those agencies. They're slightly less. We've had as many as 132 agencies get passes. We had less than 100 apply this year, and I think we're at 85 right now. We've given to a few more, but we're working with them much more closely in their distribution methods to make sure that we can get these into the community and that we can have them actually be used well. And so we're not giving them all out at once. We're working with the agencies as the year goes on. There's a list of them on the second page, and we can update you all as that number increases throughout the year. But I'm here to answer any questions that you all might have about those.
I could just compliment Audra and the member of the team that have been working on this, that this year we're trying to better align demand and usage with distribution so that we're distributing based on actual need and usage, as opposed to giving them out and they don't use many of them. And then we're telling others who are using them, I'm sorry, we can't, we don't have any more to give. So we're experimenting with that this year, and Audrey spent a lot of time with Amber and the team talking to these agencies to understand that you can come back. This is watch out if you're using them.
Okay.
I happened to be last Friday at Whatcom Regional Resource Center, talking to the Opportunity Council folks that run the resources and the programs there, and they use these 6-day passes, and they found it very helpful for the community living up in Maple Falls area, the Peaceful Valley area, and are very appreciative of this effort and these passes. So I just wanted to pass that along.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right.
Of the 54% that were at least partially used, I'm curious how many were all 6 or just 1 or 2, and yeah.
Very few of most of the tickets are, I would say 80% plus are just 1 or 2 rides. Very few of the tickets are all 6 rides are used. We just wanted to give people the opportunity, like if they had an appointment or somewhere to go over multiple days, that they would have a pass that could lead them through. Some of what we're trying to do with this pass is connect people to longer term opportunities. So we have 13 agencies who resell and distribute 31-day passes or longer UMO cards. So they'll use these 6 ride tickets to get people in with a caseworker into the system so that they can get a longer term pass. So they're not just relying on 6 ride tickets over and over and over all year long. And that piece has been really successful.
All right. Mike, nope, never mind. Anyone else? Thank you, Audra.
Thank you.
Okay. Have about 6 minutes.
All right, maybe what I'll do is break it into the 2025 and then say 26 for next time, if that's okay. So the purpose of this is just kind of give an update on, when I say kind of, I don't mean kind of, actually give an updates of events from last year and talk about how they tie Normally I'd then switch into 26 and talk about that, but we'll do to time save that for the next meeting and talk more on that. As a reminder, and as some of your coffee cups reminding folks, is we're connecting people to opportunity. That's our purpose, and Audra just highlighted that. Our mission is to, through that, make the community a better place. And how we do that is through delivering safe, friendly, efficient, reliable service, through partnerships, and then through environmentally sound and innovative transportation solutions as well. So those are kind of our guideposts as we're looking at how we're trying to do things. Internally, we're because there's a component of implementing this, is making sure that we have an internal culture that supports this. As you all know, and I'm sure have studied that saying about culture eats strategy for lunch. And so making sure that we're focusing internally as well. And the purpose of that is to develop a shared understanding of purpose, of unity of effort, what we're trying to accomplish, and so forth. And we're always trying to make sure what we say and what we do, there's not a gap between those. Doesn't mean we're always successful, but that's what our goal is trying to do. And so to do that internally, things that we did throughout 25 had multiple all employee forums where all employees come through, and that's a two-way push of information, or a two-way conversation, not a one-way push of information. We have some of those as well, but that one's to stimulate conversation. We have a all ops forum, all operations forums as well, to really hit at a lot of the things that are focused on our operations division. Have quarterly management team forums. We have training. Our training department last year instituted a really good thing, I think, a one-day training program that everybody went through. That was, I think, super helpful on that. Continue that into 26. The curriculum for that changes based on need as inputted, and all these things have inputs from our teammates, so that's helpful. Quarterly newsletters to go out. That's a one-way push of information, but a great way to share a lot of what's going on. We also have what we call tabling, where we're down in the team room, down in the foyer area down there. Yesterday, the IT department was down there with our passenger counters, what that looks like, and those kinds of things, so people can see things. And then all employee messages as well, as we're trying to keep people informed. So shifting externally how we're doing it, we have a number of initiatives that the board has set. WTA, still your foundation is keeping that safe, friendly, efficient, reliable service. But what are those resources you can bring to bear to help solve community problems, to meet our mission of making the community better? So think differently, innovation-wise, environmental-wise, and the partnerships to do those things. And so what we look at is the effects we're trying to achieve from those initiatives are things like accessibility. And things we mean by that are access to jobs, to medical care, to education, to things like recreation as well, to grocery stores, as we talked about, and also just to keep those connections. So some folks need to ride to go to a bookstore, or to see friends for coffee or lunch, or those kinds of things to keep that vibrancy going, which also helps. One of the outcomes or effects we're trying to achieve is help people live independently. Which has a derivative effect of the things like you don't have to have a family member take you to the doctor, or try to find a friend who has to take time from work, which reduces societal productivity and things. So trying to do things like that. Support our constituent jurisdictions goals. So how can we use transportation to help with support land use policies? So if parking, for example, is an issue, how do we provide better service so that people don't feel like, oh, I can't park, but I still need to get around? How do I do that? Economic growth, those kinds of things. Another thing that the board has told us is increase, I'll say, what I say, affordable housing that as a broad term, not necessarily for low income housing tax credits, but that's part of that thing. But how can we increase busable, walkable, bikeable neighborhoods through those things, which is another effect. And then try to reduce our carbon footprint, make it smaller as we're going through these things. So those are some of the effects that we're trying to create from these initiatives, what we're trying to monitor for being successful. Some of those initiatives, so Linden, so that's kind of foundational things. Some of the initiatives that we have out at Linden Station, last year we were able to select Catholic Community Services as our partner to work on putting workforce housing out there. We were able last year to secure through the state $500,000 planning grants to help with that. We started down the road for a $2 million earmark through the federal government, which we have found out yesterday. Maureen's been doing an amazing job on that we've received. It's in the Transportation Housing Development budget that both the Senate and the House are putting forward for adoption, but there's good hope that that'll make it through to the president to sign. Huge thanks to Senator Murray's staff and Congressman Larson's staff for helping through. But all those things are working in the partnership element with Catholic Community Services to help their funding stack in a tough economic environment to do that. Bellingham Station acquired the public market to move forward with transit-oriented developments down there. On rapid transit, Tim and Tim from the city, Tim Elliott, have been working really hard to come up with a locally preferred alternative and an MOU. Or I think there you'll see that in March, I think, here at this board on that. So that's doing really well. Service optimization. We are this spring wrapping up the second year of the Point Roberts Circle of Care van. That is, it's tough to serve with fixed route Point Roberts, particularly crossing 4 borders, or I mean, well, 2 borders, but 4 border crossings. So the board authorized us to provide a van and some operating money that we would otherwise have to do with fixed route to have them operate a system within our area that works. That seems to be working pretty well on that. So that continued. A van grant program. These are all service things and where we're looking for gaps in our service. The van grant program, 11 vans last year that went out to nonprofits that were able to fill some of those gaps for us. We started to service increase down at the waterfront and King Mountain. And then increased service through Old Town with the purpose of trying to get ahead of development rather than being reactive, trying to be proactive so that as people move into those developments, as they come online, they have an option as they're making their transportation decisions on how to get around in a new location. And then the big one that Tim talked about earlier, service allocation. Board spent significant time last year moving through that, which is great. Our decarbonization.
Do you want to talk about the Western service improvements that we're making in June?
Oh, we adopted that. I was putting that on 26. It's coming up, but yes, Tim and his group, the board adopted some service optimization things for Western. It'll be coming on later this year. So I had that on 26, but it was adopted in 25. It'll come on in 26 with our partners up in Western. On the decarbonization side, purchased property out near Everson with Whatcom Land Trust and 1 million trees to preserve trees that offset our carbon footprint. And I am well over, I apologize. Some of the other things just real quick on the operational, well, we have the transit access fund, which I think is super important. Van Zandt Community Center, Linden, Bradley Road are some of the projects there. And then organizationally wide, state of good repair is super important. We've been working on that. Long range financial stability planning. The board spent a lot of time on that. There's some direction on that. One of the things out of that is we got a low-no grant for $16.7 million for 14 hybrid buses, which is great. Okay, I'd be remiss without talking about the 28th consecutive clean audit last year as well. And then finally, just the partnership thing is supported over 40 events out in the community. Things from the East Whatcom Regional Resource Fair to a Veterans Stand Down, Camp Horizon, Camp Casey, Senior Day, Project Santa Claus, among a number of things. So I apologize. I kept this for the new board members. I do tend to flap my gums.
He's gotten better.
My boss is working.
Right, any questions? Okay, other business? Announcements? Gardner, thanks everyone.
Actually, that you have a question.
Yeah.
But anyone, thanks for the meeting.
Okay.
So for a year.